Everyone, it is 11 o'clock, and without further ado, we're going to have Luca and Tulio on. Luca is the owner of Quanta, and Tulio is the owner of Reef Brite. So two LED manufacturers, and here they are.
And halide activists. Tulio, you're sideways, brother.
How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Hey, am I right side up? Because I got the phone in this holder thing. And
nope. You're sideways.
Okay, hold on.
You're definitely
Let me turn it. Yeah, hold on.
Oh, there you go.
That works.
What did I tell you guys? What did I tell you in the chat we were having before?
You're having fun, is what you said.
No, Tulio.
What's that?
Oh.
This will be the first time what?
I'll
be right back.
Okay, yeah.
I gotta go to the bathroom
break. We'll be back. All right, I'm back. It looks like they're not back yet. Let's see. Oh, looks like Luke is coming in too here. I don't know where Meckley's at.
I feel better.
Yep, definitely feel pretty relieved here. There's Meckley. Okay, just in time. All right. Now that we're ready to talk to Tulio with our Hawaiian shirts.
Oh, sure. And this is the first time I wear a normal shirt, but it is an also shirt. I mean, listen, if you guys want, I can go get one of my crazy shirts and then it's really on.
Go get one. Restock.
All right, brother. I'll be right back.
What did I tell you guys? This will be the first time ever Tulio doesn't have a freaking Hawaiian shirt.
I said it too. I'm like, watch, he won't even have it. And
we planned it. We're like, when Tulio gets on, he's gonna have a Hawaiian shirt like always. Let's mess with him. Let's make it super awkward. We're gonna tell him we have to go to the bathroom. We're gonna like have an awkward pause where he's here alone. We're all gonna put on a Hawaiian shirts. He's not even wearing one.
Hey, Salem, move that like and subscribe off of Tulio's face.
Yeah, how do I do that? That was
I don't know.
I think Paul. Yeah, so shout out to Paul, great bearded reef from the Boston Reefer side. He's helping us on the back end here today, and we could not do it without him.
Paul is also asking how he can get on the YouTube and moderate on YouTube, because he said he can't mute or give timeouts on or block anybody.
Oh, well, I guess we're free balling it there. I don't know how to. There we go.
That's the Tulio we know.
Now, listen, just to let you guys know, this shirt is not only from Fiji. This is a Walt Smith original shirt. So this is old school right here.
Love it.
Well, that looks
Love
good.
it.
I got a confession about this one. This is from when I went on spring break, and I was with a girl that turned into my wife eventually. So
awesome.
Kind of crazy.
Awesome.
I think it's because of this shirt too, honestly. This thing's still hot.
It's sexy, dude.
Awesome. And by the way, guys, Salem, it's good to meet you. Good to meet you. I know we know each other, but it's good to meet you. Lucas, same thing. Chris, you and I, we go way back. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too, brother. Good to have both of you on. We were excited about this having, I know Tulio is a metal halide guy, but he also produces a great LED. And Luca, I know you love metal halides too, but you went LED with your Quantum and the lights. I hear nothing but good things about it. And that's, you're just getting it going. And I thought that it was, Salem and I both thought it was great to have you on to talk about what you've done with your product. And of course, Tulio, you've got the Lumilight Pros that are here at ACI that I haven't really had a chance to talk about much because I haven't put corals in that tank yet. So don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you, brother. I'm going to definitely let you know what's going on, but I'm happy with the overall look of what I'm getting out of those lights. It's been a couple months of having it on with just a couple of tester corals. So, and Quantums, I think they're coming my way as well, just to give them a tryout. So I'm going to have a mixture of Tulio's lights and some of Luca's lights here at ACI here down the road.
Yeah, I think, like say, Chris and I were like, we want to have a conversation about, full spectrum lighting, like LEDs versus halides or T5s. And I'm like, who are the two people we need to talk about that can represent LEDs? And I thought, after I tested the spectrum of the Hydros XHO at RAP Orlando, and I've talked to Luca a lot, both of you believe in the benefits of full spectrum. And you carry halide bulbs, and Luca, we've talked about all the crazy T5 stuff. So I thought it would be interesting to have an open conversation about the limitations of LEDs, where the technology's going, where it's better than maybe halides, and have that talk. So yeah, I think maybe an importance about UV, and what are the limitations of LEDs right now? What's the best we can get out of them with the technology available?
Who wants to, Lucas, you want that one, brother? I can.
Tulio, go for it, man.
Okay, here's the interesting take on it. One thing we discovered, and the reefing industry, the reefing hobby, one thing we basically discovered, if we want to call a spade, because Chris, I'm a straight shooter, brother, right? Corals can get by without UV. UV is really important in nature. UV does play roles. Plankton, you can look this stuff up. There's plankton out there that use UV to convert vitamin D from a pre-vitamin to a provitamin. It rearranges the molecules, and oysters eat this plankton, and that's where they're getting that from. Obviously, we use UV for vitamin D, vitamin K. There's so many things in nature where UV is absolutely important, and for it can be for wild corals as well, for coral propagation, corals and things like that. In terms of the hobby, and Chris, you've seen this when I've gone around shows with my meters and demonstrated that fixtures out there that claim to have UV, we did this at your facility, had absolutely no UV. So the corals can adapt. So I'm not going to sit here and say that corals absolutely have to have UV. Its benefits, we could look into that more. But the thing that I found most interesting from the reef side of things is that in captivity, corals that have been adapted, corals in people's reef tanks and things like that, they've totally adapted without it. And the one thing that I will say, UV is something people do not want to play with. You can seriously damage corals because they don't have the equipment like I do, or maybe Lucas has, or, there's equipment. You have to be able to measure for this stuff. You can't just go out on Alibaba or one of these places and buy a bunch of UVs and solder them to a board and start putting them on your tanks unless you have meters and other things like that to measure their output, because it can be dangerous. And I think Lucas would agree with that as well.
Yeah, Luca.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No problem.
Oh, Luca, I'm sorry.
I'm Italian, brother. I'm
Irish.
Yeah. Here's my take on UV. I can find you about 50 studies that show how UV inhibits coral growth, but I can show you studies how, to Tulio's point, UV is part of our outside spectrum, just like IR, just like all of these things. And so I think my journey with UV is, I like UV generating lights. I have a lot of them. Probably the world's biggest collection of Ushio 250 watt double ends left. I have a lot of these. And I love it. And I told Salem that I had a tank where I was using some bulbs that I'm not going to talk about, because to Tulio's point, to everyone's point, I do not want people putting these over their tank. Their 3-year-old kid is looking at the lights and now they burn their retinas. So I had the most colorful tenuous, I believe, in Wisconsin for a period of time. And my buddies like Austin from Cream City Corals can attest. I had colors you've never ever seen, and it was the slowest growth rate I've ever had, but they took on unbelievable forms. And I will tell you, I noticed it in tenuous, and I know they're a different name now, and Millies and Humilis, all the very shallow water corals really liked it. Guess what? You want to do something really interesting, find corals collected from 10 meters and below and slowly introduce them to UV and see how they do. They don't like it at all. They'll try to live in it, but they will not thrive. Why? I had a 4-stack tank system, same water in each one, and I used different lighting, and I had basic corals that I put in each one to test out my theories. Same water. I even had the same fish in each flat. This is back in 2000 when I was not even a company yet. perspective, and I don't know about Tulio, what you think, but UV through LEDs is wildly expensive, and the lifetime isn't there for me. Now I'm going to say light UV, like 385, sure, whatever. But we're talking, Tulio, all these people right here, we're talking about UVB and UVA, but UVB. And we
have UVB systems, so you're right on the money with the expense and the longevity and all of that other stuff. You're correct.
So for me, my journey is there are really good UV options out there, and they still exist. And Reef Brite makes them still. So you have options out there. Okay, where I'm at is you take out the fringe corals on both sides, the ones that will die instantly when they meet UV. Take anything from 50 meters and put under UV. And the very shallow water ones that we want to have that last 1% color. And I see that Greg's in here. Greg always talks about getting that last 3% color is really hard. Other than that, you can keep the corals without UV. In fact, T5, shocker, ATI uses UV opaque plexiglass. There's no UV going into any of those tanks. None of them. My guy, Leo's Reef over in Europe, he grows some of the most incredible corals that I know. And he does not use, some systems have zero UV over them. In fact, it's ATI Blue Plus and Coral Plus, and that's it. Now he does have halides, and he loves halides. So what I'm saying is there's solutions for everything. And I think sometimes people get stuck into this absolute. And if you go on my website and Tulio's website, Tulio has different platforms for different applications, and I do the same. And I think that's, Tulio, how I want to sum it up is there's no one, I think if you make LED lights, people think you hate halides and T5s. Completely wrong. And I do want to say something that T5 bulbs can make more UV than halide bulbs. It all depends on the phosphor. And you can't have plastic over true UV. It's going to also degrade unless you're using tanning bed acrylic, which go price that out of 4x8.
Well, and one thing I would like to and Lucas, Luca, you hit it right on the head right there. Regarding UV, you want corals to color up, and if you know what you're doing with UV, you will get unbelievable. In fact, Mike Paletta, Chris, you know Mike Paletta called me up a few years ago. He says, why aren't some of my corals the same colors that they used to be? Because he was going over his old photos and things like that. What many people don't realize is in the center of Mike Paletta's tanks, amongst all the other LEDs, whatever you want to call it, that are on there, are a bunch of my metal halides. And guess what? The colors came back. You need that UV, the protective pigments, things like this. And Luca, one thing that I really enjoyed that you said is that people try to make absolutes. Lighting, it's not an absolute. Think of it like a toolbox. If you go in your toolbox, you have 5 different screwdrivers. You got Phillips, Standard, Torx. You got all these different screwdrivers because not one tool can do every job. Chris, you and I have discussed this many times, okay? Lighting is much the same way. And in many of the talks that I've said, listen, I am a huge fan of halides. And Chris, you've seen me go against some of the top figures in this industry, and they have not been able to refute me in the benefits of halides for certain applications because the science is the science. But what I've always said is that for many hobbyists, I still feel that LEDs are most beneficial because of the controllability and because of the types of corals that many of them have. See, Luca, you have hardcore sticks. Chris, same thing. You've got some hardcore stuff. A lot of the other stuff, your green slimers and the this and the that, the other thing, quite frankly, guys, you and I both know this. They're going to do fine under most light sources as long as the PAR, the general intensity, DLI, things like that. As long as they're present, they'll do fine under many different types of lighting. So Luca, I really like your explanation. That was really spot on.
And Tulio, one thing I plug about you. People are like, "Hey, how's Reef Brite doing?" They ask me questions, and I'm like, "I don't know, but I can tell you one thing. One thing he won't ever talk about. He's probably selling a shit ton of halides right now." And what a market, dude! Everyone quit, and here is Tulio being like, "This is still a thing." Major public aquariums have thousands of halides over their displays.
And I supply them.
Yeah, and I wouldn't doubt you. And
I know. I just sent a bunch to Dubai. Charles Delbeck. I can go right down the list of Georgia Aquarium still runs them. Steinhardt Aquarium. There's a major. Listen, I was shocked about this. I will not mention their name. Chris, I will tell you who these guys are off camera, and you're going to laugh about this. But a major coral wholesaler supplier to our industry contacted us a few months ago and bought a bunch of halide systems from us because they weren't getting the growth out of their sticks. They weren't getting the overall growth and color and things like that. And these guys were fans of another base, and I don't have a problem with that, Chris. You know that. I don't do that. I just want to make sure people have good lighting for their aquariums, right? But for these guys to ship the halides was really a big tell, especially with the sticks.
And one of the things you touched base on was the public aquariums. There was a lot of public aquariums that switched over because the powers that be that are in charge of the financing said they had to put LEDs up over their reef exhibits. And then a year later, when they go and see those reef exhibits, they ask why the tanks don't look like they used to look. Well, you guys made us spend $50,000 on LED lights, and now our exhibits don't look good anymore. And they luckily didn't throw away their metal halide ballasts and fixtures, and then they just couldn't source out bulbs. So everybody that I know in the public aquarium industry that has asked me how to source out metal halides, I say, why don't you give Tulio a call? You need 1,000-watt metal halides? Tulio can get them for you. I can't help you with it. And it was great to see some of these public aquariums that, that were told what to do because it was supposed to be energy efficient and better for the animals. Again, go back to metal halides so that the actual exhibits would look like they did for decades in the past by using and switching out a metal halide bulb. And again, we go back to a watt. Okay, so if they're running 10,000 watts of LED and 10,000 watts of metal halide, they're not the only thing that they're doing is maybe adding the infrared, which heats up the water a little bit more. Yes, it's not going to be as energy efficient, but what's more important, the efficiency of the energy or the animals being happy and thriving in the system versus just barely surviving?
Now, I'm glad Luke is here because he's obviously a lighting expert, and being he's of a competitive company, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I'm speaking to you, Luca, as a lighting professional, so that if we agree, we have convergence here, right? Yeah. We talk about the watt as a watt, and here's it in real simple for a lot of our viewers that are watching. It depends on how you express the energy. Yeah. See, with LEDs, Luca, am I lying that their output is primarily in the visible spectrum?
Well, I would like to say that a lot of my competitors' LEDs are in the visible. I have above 800 nanometer in my Alice. And I worked hard on that. But yes.
In general,
they don't even have 720.
Exactly. And they call it full spectrum. And I think that's the biggest travesty done to the animals themselves. It's not about the animals at that point. It's about saying you got a full spectrum lamp and you're lying about it. You know it's not a full spectrum lamp. And honestly, that's the biggest thing I have a problem with.
Chris, I'm going to go a step further.
Go.
It's not the light manufacturer's fault. People yell at me every single day for having I don't say full spectrum, I say wide spectrum because I cannot get the deep infrareds and all the UVs. A wide spectrum. They're like, I want blue. And I'm going to tell you something, and here we go. We're going to get the internet going.
Spice it up.
I won't swear. The influencers that are paid by certain companies tell everyone they want a blue tank because that's all they show. And so this isn't a lighting company issue. This is the influencers and pushing this bullshit agenda. Because Tulio, here's another thing I know you're going to go nuts on. Now, your ex-HO actinic when I was young, I stared at this thing in marvel. But we both know that we need more than just blue LEDs now. Blue to show, you got to have more. Here's the problem. Most of the manufacturers don't put violet, cyan, and green. And influencers will talk how gross cyan LEDs are for lighting. It's like, no way. It actually balances it out. It ends the Windex. But here's the deal. I think there's a shift and people are starting to listen. And I don't know a single hardcore SPS grower that runs blues only. Now, if you're running LPS and you're going from 30 meters and getting those things, yes, Tulio and I have blue bars that will make those corals wildly happy. I want to say some other things, though. I want to take a little divergence. There's another issue I have with LEDs. All right. So we talk about having obsessions. And how can you say you're doing something that does something if you don't have those things to evaluate? I still have unopened in the box Coral View. They're 250, 25 optical facets. This was a really good fixture back in the day. Was it the best? No. Luma Tech or Luma Arcs or whatever the hell. But this is a phenomenal reflector. Here's the problem I have with most LEDs in the industry. They're literally the size of this notebook. And the reflectors are not reflectors, they're lenses. So again, I try to provide innovation inside the LED space. I will never get into halides because I don't think you need halides to have a wonderful reef tank. And I don't think the average human wants halides. They don't want inconvenience. Hell, they don't even like changing T5 bulbs. Now us in this chat, we do more work than that in 10 minutes on our systems. But the average hobbyist does not want to deal with it and recycling bulbs or whatever. So my thought is I'm going to eliminate the issues associated with commercialized LED lighting. And Tulio's product from the start had widespread. There's a lot of beam lights. There's a lot of poor optics out there. And that's why certain lights like Tulio's and mine have gotten reputations because we don't have beams anymore. So my whole thing is I'm working on taking limitations of LEDs that were forced upon us by corporate executives, maximizing the pallet space and minimizing shipping costs. I pay a shit ton in shipping costs, but I don't use middlemen. So guess what? I can make money and I can afford to ship a freaking box this big that contains 2 lights. So that's my little side rant. I think the LED industry is ripe for takeover, and these types of lights,
need to go away.
Aesthetics. All right, I'm going to shut
Well,
up.
Luca, interestingly enough, and again, you're spot on. So you mentioned the XA Joe, and if you've stared at them, then you know this. We were the first, and when I mean years ago, I'm going back years ago, almost 2 decades for that matter.
Correct.
I was the first to use reflectors on LEDs. I came from the LumaLED Philips family. They said, you can't use reflectors on LEDs. I said, what the hell are you talking about? Obviously, you need to go back and look at optoelectronics and the way photons work and these things work. I don't want to use secondary collimating optics because these are bad. And those refer to those beams that you're talking about. And as you know, I've never, ever, ever, ever used a secondary collimating optic for that reason. And here's the comedy, and you're right about this. It's not the manufacturer's fault why lights are so screwed up. It is the influencers, and I'll tell you why. When LED lights first came out, other manufacturers that were using these collimating optics, think like a magnifying glass in the sun, and you put it on your arm, and you're going to get that burning. So they were burning corals, duh. So what they do, they had to raise the lights really high to stop the burning. Now, how stupid is that? Because, Luca, how much output do we lose by raising the light even just a foot? So now I got to raise the light really high so that I just can't stop burning them. The point is, if the light is designed correctly and the light is distributed correctly, you don't have to have it 2 feet off the tank to stop burning your corals. You know, there's the oxymoron there. And, Luca, I couldn't agree with you more. You're going to crack up about this. Chris, you know my feelings about blue light. I actually don't like it. I may have started it with the blue moonlights and some of the stuff that I did in 2002, 2003 and some of that stuff. But then people took it to the next level. That wasn't me. Everybody thought they had to have a blue tank. It was so bad, Luca. It was so bad. People thought moonlight was blue. They didn't understand what the spectral composition of moonlight is. And guess what?
It's 52K.
Yes.
I measured
and
myself.
I have the spectral measurements and the PPFD and all of that. I took this when there's a place called the Biosphere, and I had to do a lighting analysis, and I have all of this data. But here's the crazy part. I went to Moat Marine. Obviously, people know Moat Marine, and we took measurements underwater, and lo and behold, even at 15 feet, light is still full spectrum.
It is.
It's not blue. But even Jamie Craig's, he released some data. You remember that, Chris, when Jamie Craig's released the data, and his data essentially coincided with my data, that even at 15, 20 feet underwater, you still have red, green, all of these other wavelengths.
Tulio,
yeah.
Two things. What's interesting is slight turbidity will rip out UV like crazy.
Yes.
Second thing, I'm going to challenge why corals were getting burned. Are you ready for this one?
Sure.
All right. So, and then I want to comment on Greg Carroll's comment on the live stream because it's an interesting point, but I want to talk more about that. So, I'm going to throw this out here. That one. I'm going to throw this out here, guys. I think the corals were getting burned not because of the optics, but when you just put a peak at 450, you overwhelm the chlorophyll. The chlorophylls have evolved to have all the different absorption spectrums, and now you are laser beaming something on them that they can't handle. I personally believe that when customers switches out from traditional LED lights that lack the violet, the cyan, the green, etc., and they get mine, they're like, wow, my elk went up by 50%. It's because I'm reawakening evolutionary needs of these corals. So that's the one thing, those two things. And then I want to hear your thoughts to it because this is my last one. As a company, having to figure out things like optimal amount of products to fit on a pallet is an excellent problem to have. If you don't think so, I think you're lying to yourself. I think this is bullshit. And I'm going to talk about why that's bullshit. So I know how I run companies. I know how large companies work. You can tell if you wound up designing this as your light panel, that's because the bean counters figured out how to maximize profits. So I'm going to reboot that and say that the current light vendors, we are figuring out how to absorb the cost of providing a light that does its job better. And
exactly.
I'm squarely aiming at the middleman. I have to get them out. And I have absorbed that cost. And if you don't think I know about the cost of a pallet, I got news for you. I completely know about that. And so, Tulio, 3 things I want to just have you talk about. I don't think you design products for shipping costs either, because you're shipping metal bricks across the country in the terms of ballast. The blue spectrum peaks, and then talk to me about your thoughts on the reality of your optics, because you have to manufacture your optics, your reflectors for your XHO. That is a manufacturing nightmare, and my hat's off to you.
Okay, I'll start with the blue. Go ahead.
Real quick. If a company is maximizing their profits and not thinking about the animals, I want nothing to do with that product, because if they didn't have these animals to light up, they wouldn't even have a company. So that's the biggest irritating thing that Greg said to me, said on here, is they do it to maximize their profits. Well, maximize the lighting source for the animals, because if you don't have that, you have no company as it is. So if you can't absorb, like you're doing, Luca, absorb a little bit of that cost into your product.
What's a lot?
And not be
right. It's a fucking ton of money. And Greg saying I was talking about pallets are a good idea. I think it's just a good thing to talk about, though. Keep going with this, because I do believe you need to design lights for the animals not for the bean counters in a corporate setting.
And not for aesthetic looks. I mean, it's about the animals. It's 100% about the animals. If it's not, stay out of the hobby, in my opinion. I mean, you got to figure out how to make it work so that the animals are the first thing that is on your mind, and your profits will be there, because if your light is that good, people are going to want it anyhow. And also, the cost of some of these LEDs that I see on the market right now, they tend to be way overpriced, in my opinion, especially when I get offered them at a fraction of the cost, just to put them up for promotional aspects by that company. And I see what I'm being offered the price of them to be, and then I see what the retail user has to spend on them. It's like a third or less. That to me is very disheartening, and I feel that the hobbyist is the one that's not getting the short end of the stick, and then the animals themselves are getting an even shorter end of the stick, because it's not the right spread, not the right distribution of the light, just for aesthetically pleasing products.
Okay, and now I'll come back to all three of those. One, Luca, with the 450, you're absolutely correct, and here's why. And anybody can Google this. Anybody can Google this. I've said this in lighting talks in the past, okay? If you look at the two primary absorption peaks, you have 450 as one of them, right? That everybody pretty much knows that. Now, let's rephrase that. Instead of maximum absorption peak, that means that the coral is most sensitive to light at that wavelength. Now, here's another comedy, and Chris, you know this because you and I have talked about this. Even my XHOs, my original XHOs, never had 450 nanometer LEDs in them. Guess what they had? 450 and 460. I purposefully, because if you look at it on a spectrometer and you combine those two, now you have more of a flattened where you're getting more beneficial absorption without driving that 450 and driving that into the corals, okay? So the original, and that was a joke running around that XHOs were originally just 450 nanometer LEDs. And Chris, you know how many times we've talked about it. I've laughed about it and let people think what they want. Because, if you get mad at a donkey for being a donkey, who's the ass? You're with the donkey, right? So I just let him run with it, right? But the point is, when it comes to designing light, and Chris, I speak truth in this. I don't think about shipping or anything. I literally try to produce. In fact, listen, when I first started my company, I was banned from the shipping department. Because I would literally just come in, I'm trying to ship. No, you can't do anything with shipping. And so when we design stuff, I design it, I build it, and it is what it is. On the profitability side, we don't, sadly, people think, okay, so Chris, back to your statement, because you and I go way back. Our products are not like that. I can't offer you my product at a fraction of the cost, because like Luca said, to manufacture my reflectors is a nightmare. It's not cheap. It takes real tooling and things that we do here and assembly here and some of these other things like that. So the point is that it's not cheap. But other companies, they do what they do, and we kind of do what we do. And that's why with Reef Brite, we never wanted to be one of the biggest lighting companies in the industry. I've said this even in my lighting talks. We just wanted to be one of the best. So people can talk about all they want, but Reef Brite still keeps coming up even after all of these years. Why? Because we just focused on doing the best job we can do for the animals and for the hobby.
And that's like after talking to Luca about his Quantas, and his Atlas, it's about, the design, about, distribution, and it's about a quality light system that is designed to do the best it possibly can for the animals. And I have a lot of respect for what you've done with your lights. And I'm super excited down the road here to get some rolling. And Tulio, I've always used yours. I mean, bottom line.
And what did I tell you was the perfect compliment to my Atlas?
XHOs.
Well, and I'll say this on camera. Luca, get a hold of me through Facebook or Chris or whatever. I'd like to just talk with you because I really do appreciate what you're doing with lighting. I mean, Chris, you've known me. Anybody that's for the betterment, the advancement of lighting for education and things like that, I'm all in on it. Okay, I'm all in on stuff like that. And I will say this, it's been no secret that I've taken a little bit of a hiatus from Facebook. Okay, because listen, I'm too busy working. I'm working on stuff with fish and wildlife and some of these other things going on for just so many things going on. But I can tell some of the Reef Brite people out there this. Aside from the Hydros XHO, which is going to be coming out very soon, I know people have speculated and talked about it. What they don't understand is that light is more than just the light. It's the software, it's the packaging, it's all these things that people just don't understand that are out of our hands. Plates for the boxes, labels. It's just, believe it or not, it's easier to design a light fixture than it is to design the proper packaging for a light fixture. And Luca, you could probably confirm that as well, right? But we do have, aside from the Hydros XHO, we do have a new XHO coming out. We have a new XHO coming out to complement the Hydros XHO. We have new Lumilite Pro Pluses coming out as well, which builds off the platform. So like even the lights that you have, Chris, that you were very impressed with, those are old school now. I've got some new stuff. And Luca, I'm really excited about what you're doing with your lights, because like I said, we need all of us working together.
Yeah.
Because it can't, it's about the animals, guys. It's about the animals. And that's where, to me, that's what's always been important.
And there's some good discussion going on. And this one guy asked, I wonder what Luca's margins are. And I think this is an interesting question. Because this is that toxic influencer stuff, right? So I'm going to answer that directly because, well, hey, my name's Luca, and I don't give a shit about those comments. I'll answer them because transparency is key. So to answer that, so are you asking what my margins are based on like overall costs? Or are you actually asking me how do you offer lights for so much cheaper because you've cut all the overhead and my actual margins are far lower than the industry? That's the fundamental question. I think a lot of you guys know that I have a very large, very well-known company. That's my primary. I own 2 companies, and I do this out of passion. And my margins are not even sufficient to keep up with my growth. I've been growing at about 400% for 3 years, and my margins even keep up with supply chain. You'll see I'm routinely out of stock on things. And I refuse to inject more money into it. So I could have gone down the route of increasing my cost, but instead I'm not. I'm going to have 3 product lines, and my margins in the industry would be considered underperforming. And I'm pretty proud of that. I do work on fraud pretty hard, keep fraud down, things like that. And the reality is to make margins and to design for the animal's health, like Tulio said, and to offer a value product, I cannot go through a distributor that just takes 30 to 40% cut. Aquakiller, you want to really ask the real question? Why are distributors taking 30 to 40%? Maybe you should ask that question, because that's the more relevant question. And I got to tell you, the aquarium industry is really a very small and non-profitable industry. There's no one in private equity firms that are like, hey, call up Tulio and Luca. We're going to get rich as shit on this stuff. So I think the bigger discussion in general, supply chain across the world, the middleman is being cut out. And I want to still be able to hook those pet stores up. I still want to be able to hook wholesale up, and I can do that, but I'm not going to employ a middleman. And that's already gone away with most of industries already. So the bigger thing is once other companies start getting away from middlemen and just going directly to the pet store, to the customer, whether they're wholesale or retail, that's how you can add more value without increasing costs. This is just fundamental. And like when Tulio deals with public aquariums, you are going direct and you're helping them, or etc. So there's not one for all. You can still have distribution. I'm not saying that that's like, you can do whatever you choose. But the reality is, Aquakiller, is I chose to invest a lot more money into the LEDs. Tulio, are violet LEDs the same price as a common blue LED, or are they more expensive?
Oh, no, exactly. Listen, the cost of some of the UV LEDs that we use is through the roof. It's through the roof. And people don't understand it's because of the exotic materials required to produce that LED. These aren't just normal crystals here, okay? And so again, and then between degradation and things like that. So, you know, there is that. And so with us, what we did, we had to go through distribution. We do support the pet stores and some of the things, but we do have a different pricing structure. We don't overinflate things. We don't overinflate things to then be able to turn around and give somebody 50% off on something. Because if I can give you 50% off on something, that means I'm robbing you the rest of the time. We knew what margins we needed to keep the people employed, to pay the employees, to pay the machinery. We operate on a very minimal margin because the distributors do have to make money. And guess what? If you're going to really, you know, complain to people about some of the pricing on stuff, go after some of the online resellers. Okay, because if you knew the margins they were operating on, okay, manufacturers, many times we make the least amount of money. Chris, you know this. You have some products. You and I both know some of the stuff you work on. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. We actually make the least amount of money when you look at the big scheme of the pie over the whole, you know, big scheme of things, if you will.
Yep.
You know, and Saltwater Aquarium has a good point. So they're a distributor. And what I'm not saying is there's cost associated with every step.
Yes.
That's supply chain. So to Tulio's point, I would not be able to make money going through that, but there are products that can do that. What I'm trying to say is we got to reimagine this. There's different niches for everything, and there's different roles for everyone. If we didn't have distribution in this world, we would not have anything. We would have nothing. There'd be nothing. But here's the deal. You have like a big guy like Saltwater that's driving that distribution cost down because that's what they're focused on because they want more business. There's things that work. But I'll be honest, when there was the mega giant only in the room, I was getting wildly concerned for this hobby. That has changed. We're rebalancing. Capitalism is at work. But to your point, Tulio, there is not much margins in manufacturing. It's really a tough thing. And then you have different platforms. There's Made in America. There's designed and built in China. You know, there's all these different things and they all have different niches. Then, Julia, we can go into constant voltage versus constant current, the pluses and minuses with those, all of these things. But the reality is that customers, and I think it's true, they do want something similar to this because it's easy to hang, but you should have the portfolio to offer everything. Designed to be the best LED light. That is what I consider my Atlas. Tulio has what you consider the best spread in LED light bars, and it's started the entire industry. That's complete innovation. So you have these wide ranges. There's a lot of different things, but I will say if people are setting up large tanks and they think this is your solution, if you get the same pricing as those stores get, sure. But they're not going to get that. So they think a store's paying $95,000 for lights. No way. No way. Well,
it's all promotion.
That's the interesting thing about
Oh, yeah. And go ahead, Chris.
Say a good point about the little LED fixtures that go over top of a 6 foot by 2 foot tank. I mean, I remember when I had my 180 gallon tank as a hobbyist, 27 years ago, and I had 3 400 watt metal halides hanging over that tank, and that tank lit up and it was just amazing. The acros grew well, everything did phenomenal. Now I see everybody, and think about the cost of a metal halide fixture and everything. You're looking at like $400 nowadays for the whole kit and caboodle, and you put 3 of them up and you get the same spread as you do out of 6 of these small puck size LEDs at $950 a pop or $1,000 a pop or whatever the heck they are, and a watt's a watt, right? So 1,200 watts versus 6 that are 300 watts each, that's 1,800 watts. I don't understand it. It doesn't, I can't wrap my head around why that is a thing when they're never going to get their money back from the savings they're getting from those LEDs with all the invested in the very beginning. $5,000 versus $1,200. I'll take that. I'll take the $1,200 and a bulb change every day or every year over a fixture that needs to be replaced in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years.
Oh, yeah. And Chris, I'm glad, again, just in short, and I will mention saltwater.com because I know, Ken, they're a great vendor of ours. Okay, they're good guys. So I appreciate what they do. But there is a cost associated to the distributor's defense. There is a cost associated with distribution because they have to spend a lot of money. They have to lay out a lot of money, which costs money. They have to store these items. They have to ship these items because people want free shipping and things. So yes. There's definitely all of that. But back to what you were saying, though, Chris, with the watt to watt thing. Listen, I've told people this for years. I said, listen, this may not be the popular opinion here, but you're going to take these lights that you're going to have to replace after 5, 6, 7 years, because no matter how good the product is, depending on how many hours a day you're running it, ambient conditions and other things like that, you're going to get degradation. My lights are going to nothing lasts forever. Okay. So the point is you're not going to get that return. So if you're looking at the benefits of controllability in terms of aesthetics and other factors, these are all things that each person chooses whenever they set up their systems. But we could certainly still have an argument today, Chris, am I lying, that halides can be a cost-effective solution for a lot of coral keepers. Because when you look at the energy usage and everything else, and you look at the cost of lights, and unless maybe you're in California, I will take that back because I know their usage is way up in California. I'm not trying to start anything, but it really depends on your electrical rate. But if you have an average electrical rate, cost of ownership for halides can actually be relatively affordable.
Go ahead. No, Salem, I want you to pipe in.
I'm absorbing. I'm taking it all in to have my final. I'm glad I had you guys on. This is the type of conversation I wanted to happen. So I think the thing that really underpins this, though, I think it does come down to aesthetics and education. So like you mentioned, I think it was the consumers and mostly the influencers that drove the super blue light. But that's for a reason. Think about the number of people come into a fish store and they're getting like a goldfish or some tetras, and then they see an octo spawn underneath all blues. It's a completely alien thing that's a new experience, and that's very attractive. So if you go and the only lights available because of distributors are ones that have catered to the demand, which are more blue lights, then those are naturally going to sell, and the machine keeps getting reinvested into that. And the LFS doesn't have another option, really. So they say, yeah, this is what we do, and they might not know better themselves. So I think it all comes down to education and talking about the importance of a wider spectrum light. And I think also, like you said, Tulio, these are tools. I think that really to really have coral and put the animal first, we probably need to think from a biotope perspective. If we're going to have shallow, like a 0 to 10 meter tank, then mimic the spectrum, have full spectrum. Maybe that's where halides are good. But if you're going to do like a deep water tank, some of the stuff that like Sandler is doing right now, that's where you could probably get away with just like the helixes, like the meso blues or the XHOs maybe, and the coral would be healthy. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
I'm glad you mentioned Sandler because obviously Andrew's a friend of mine, okay? And it was last year, I believe, I was at his house and I was showing him I was showing him a halide system. Now with our halide systems, because Luca, you're right, you have to be careful with lenses because they will filter out any beneficial UV and things like that. Yes. So we call it optically clear. It's basically UV transmissible glass. Again, it's very expensive. We get it from Corning, blah, 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 blah. So here I am with this fixture and Salem, you know, Andrew, he's I love Andrew. He's a nut. And I mean this in a good way, right? So I got this halide in my hand and he says, hey, can we compare it to this light? And he pulls up the popular light. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't do that, but we know which light I'm talking about. He says, hey, can we compare this light? Can we compare the halide to this light? And the halide was a 250 watt, and we had this other light. And you can call Andrew because he's got it on his YouTube video live. Well, lo and behold, who walks through the door? None other than Mark Levinson himself. I said, Mark, perfect timing. I handed him the fibers from my spectrometer, and I also handed him the sensors for my PAR meter so that I couldn't do any preferential measurements. And we made sure that the lights were set up so that the light sources themselves, meaning the emission, the actual emission, was at the same plane. And guess what? Not only did the halide win in terms of PPFD, it obviously blew away the LED, that particular LED source in terms of the broad spectrum emissions with the UV and the other wavelengths. Go ahead, Luca.
Tulio, I have a testing rig in my garage, which I call my facility, and the government views it as a facility. But I want to tell you that I had the exact same test results. I shared those. They're on my website. I will tell you this, and this is one thing that I'm proud of is, I think a lot of people think, oh, am I like a reseller? What's going on? So it took me about 2 years to develop it, but the Atlas per watt, 71% more efficient than the most premium LEDs. And to your point, the Ushio 10K, which I believe this is the last one in existence in the world.
I have some.
The 10K, 250 double N, bro. But anyways, all right, you get two. Yeah, we have nothing. This is a more efficient light using electronic ballast. And I do agree with you, Tulio. So like my whole thing is how do you innovate beyond what people expect for LEDs? And I had a comment in the comments sections. Hey, Luke, are you working on like a remote or a controller? And the reality is yes. I'm working on a cohesive experience that you don't need an aquarium controller. You don't need these things. Plug and play, dimming, combinations, because I want to offer to the customer something that's easy but cheap. And my role, and I'm on here, Tulio and I are in here to create conversation. So guys, yes, are we saying some stuff that's kind of not the normal? You can't have the same conversations anymore. It's too boring. We have to go outside of that. So am I a small manufacturer inside of this aquarium industry? Yes. And I hope it stays that way. I enjoy the hours that my son works with me. He's learning Shopify. He's learning customer experience. I don't even want Tulio's volume. Do not want it. So yes, I don't want distribution. I can't afford it. I can't do that. That doesn't mean it's wrong. And I'm here to generate interest, discussion, and thoughts. And I think the cool thing I think about this, Tulio, is that both of our brands are inside of Andrew's house. And it's not because I have a hype marketing department. It's because I kept bothering, like, dude, just try my freaking lights for Christ's sake. Tulio, I don't know if you think this is cool or not, but I've been doing dual spectrum single chips since I started my company. I was the first one doing this because you said something. You got to flatten that curve of the LEDs. And now my Mezzo Blue has 8 different spectrums to create a violet peak, a blue plateau with a little tiny bit of cyan. And we all have to innovate in our space. For me, I can't believe the amount of innovation that comes in reflectors, lenses. I have a radial lens on my Atlas that blends radially, but beams it into the reflector that then diffuses it down. So like, there's so many things. I have Tulio's halide reflectors. They're excellent. They do a great job. So I guess I wanted to cap our time here, and I'm going to shut up again, this is what the industry needs, is people that aren't afraid to say the true narratives.
The truth.
And there's truth out there to everything we have said, and there's truth to that. I think it's a good thing that we have a $1,000 light with a $200 mounting system. You know why? If that ease of setup gets someone in the hobby, I'm fine with that. You can see that I don't think I'm best. I'm having a great time with Tulio on here, Chris, Salem. The reality is we need more options. We need to talk about the reality of stuff. And it's okay to have differing opinions. So that's my little recap.
Transparency about everything that's out in the market is super key. And we don't have enough of it in this industry. And you guys tonight or today have helped bring out some stuff that I'm sure a lot of people have not even heard about or even thought about. And thank you guys so much for even being here. It was just it's an honor to be
And I just want to close real quickly on top of what Luca was saying, because you're right. Are we developing, Chris, you know that I've been actively working on halide replacement with LED. You've seen the spectral data firsthand right at your facility for stuff I've showed you. And you and I both love halides, and you've seen how close I've gotten. And Salem, when you glimpsed at that Hydros XA Joe, again, that's just a glimpse at some of the exciting stuff we have coming out, you know, the pipe. And Luca, you keep working on what you're doing, because listen, as a business person, as a lighting professional and everything else, I will say this: competition breeds excellence. And all we want is the best product for the animals. So, Luca, I'm very glad we got to meet, and I look forward to seeing you at one of the shows. And Salem, Chris, I'm glad for you guys having me on. I really appreciate it. Chris, you know I love you, brother. And Salem, it's been a pleasure meeting you, man.
Yeah, it's been great to meet you. Thank you both for coming on. I think we'll end here with this final question from Ken, which I feel like is what most, because I'm going to upload these as hour segments. So most people that are in the hobby will watch this wondering, what's the best light for me? Do I need this? Do I need that? And that's the core question, is what does a consumer need in terms of lighting? And I think we've highlighted it best here that lights are tools. It depends on what type of coral you're keeping. And I think that a lot of fatalities with coral, a lot of coral losses, and a lot of what gets people out of the hobby is likely using the wrong tool for the job. So I think that full spectrum, true full spectrum from like T5 combos or halides or plasma or whatever is important in some instances. All blues is important in some instances. And I think that probably people like us having a conversation, people like Andrew doing biotope-esque setups and showing where those different spectrums can play a part, I think that's all super important. So if you're watching this as a consumer asking, what light should I buy? You should ask yourself, what coral do you want to keep, and reverse engineer it from that. Where are those corals kept in the wild, collected in the wild, which is stuff we'll be talking about on this podcast with Australian collectors, and then choose your lighting option from there. There's not a one size fits all. Halide doesn't rule. Blues don't rule. It's you got to find the tool for the job. And I think that's the takeaway here that we've really talked about and what's important.
100%.
That's an excellent closing point.
Tulio, we should do more live streams with these guys. And you know who does rule? Meckley and Salem for doing something like this.
Thank you guys for being a part of it.
We need like a 6-hour one, because this I felt like this is the problem. When we did the 12-hour one, it was a problem because an hour was not enough, because at the hour mark, the conversation really starts getting rolling and then you have to cut it off. So I feel like we could have kept talking for a lot longer. Maybe we can bring some data next time and actually show a lot of this stuff to the consumers too. That would help to have graphs on. But thanks for coming on, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah. This will be uploaded soon. I'll send it to you, and hope you have a great day.
Take care. All right, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, everyone. Whoever liked that, be sure to like and subscribe and share this stream. Be sure to follow Reef Brite and Tulio and Luca and Quanta. Give them all love. And if you like what we're doing here, be sure to subscribe to the ACI YouTube channel. And I'm also going to put a link in here to where you can donate, buy merchandise, and support what we're doing. We are not monetized on YouTube because we are just like 7 days old. So can't do super chats. Got to go on there and do the manual way. But our next guest is going to be Chris Wood of Captivate Aquaculture, and we're going to be going down the rabbit hole with a lot of different fun stuff on trace elements, pH, inorganic chemistry. So,
sounds good.
I think we take another bathroom break, and we're going to have Chris Wood on. And
hey, Salem, since you're having Chris on and everything, ask him a quick question. Ask him about photolysis and light's effect on pH. I promise you, you will not regret that.
No, you won't.
I wanted to get into the turbidity and DOC and light penetration and UV killing Vibrio. There's a whole microbiome, organic chemistry, light intersection there that we didn't even get to touch on. That's fun stuff. That'll be next time.
No worries, guys.
Next time.
See ya. Nice to meet you, Tulio.
Yep.
Nice to meet you, Luca. Take care, guys.